Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Zoo Crew's My Story podcast. My name is Sarah, and I am an alcoholic. Please be sure to subscribe, like, share, and comment on our videos so that YouTube will send them out to alcoholics looking for recovery. Today, we have Adam S. sharing their recovery story and experience, strength, and hope with us. They're going to tell us what it was like, what happened, and what it's like now. Please keep in mind that this will be going on an Alcoholics Anonymous website. So without further ado, I give you Adam S., whose sobriety date is 9/17/2025. So come on in, Adam.
Thank you, Sarah, and thank you for your service to this group. My name is Adam, and I'm an alcoholic. As Sarah said, my sobriety date is September 17th of 2025, and this is my story. I guess the only place to really start is from the beginning. I was born in Omaha, Nebraska, to a very loving Christian household that really had all of the needs and resources to live a good life as a child that one could desire and require. I'm very blessed. Alcohol was never present in my home. Um, I did not grow up around addiction. I didn't know what addiction was. I had never experienced it firsthand. I had only heard stories. So that was a huge blessing in early life, but I was also very naive to what was out there. And so we just tried to hide from it and stay away from it. And I was never really educated on it either. So our household, like I said, was a very strong Christian household. I have a higher power that I choose to call God. God is my higher power. And the reason I just say that now is because you're going to hear that a lot in this story, because he starts to play a role and take hold way earlier on in my story than I realized. And so when I was young, I had a different addiction. My addiction was sports. That was basically our family life. I had two brothers and an older sister, and our life was God, family, sports, rinse, cycle, and repeat. And that was what we based our days, our summers, our vacations, everything was around that. Again, I said I was very blessed to come from a family that was good enough financially to where they were able to give all of us kids the opportunities that we wanted to pursue and be passionate about. And I had a lot to be grateful for there, and I respected that. So I wanted to stay away from anything that was going to take away from my opportunities there. I didn't want to disrespect my parents' time, money, and effort with everything they were doing by going out and getting involved with things I shouldn't be at a young age. My focus was very driven towards sports and excelling at sports. As I got into high school, it started to take off a little bit more. I was playing year-round football, basketball, baseball, um, staying away from the party scene, extremely focused. And it was paying off. I was getting good grades. I was the clean-nosed kid in school. I was, I was getting all the accolades, kind of the preppy kid that always had his nose clean and doing the right thing. Because I always had that eye on the prize, that carrot dangling of college and professional sports that I was afraid of losing. So it kept my nose pretty clean. Um, as I got later into high school, I started to realize that baseball was going to be my path of choice, and that colleges were giving me the best opportunity there, and probably my best opportunity to go on and seek professional opportunities as well. So I ended up committing to go play college baseball down in Kansas. And for my first time ever, I was going to go away from home and be outside of that structure, that discipline, all of that I'd grown up with, that safety bubble around me. I was going to go off and have to take it with me into the real world for the first time. So in August of 2001, I moved down to Kansas and was a college athlete for the first time, and I was actually getting to live my dream. Everything that I had worked towards everything that I had devoted my time and energy and family, financial resources to was paying off. The goal was coming to fruition, and I was getting to experience my best life. Everything that I had planned for was right in front of me. So I go down there and continued. As you can imagine, most of us know, we get into the college scene, and now, alcohol is even more readily available. I managed to avoid it. I never had a drink of alcohol in high school. I avoided it all the way through, just as I said I would, and got into college and even continued to avoid it. I would be the guy sitting in a household of keg parties and stuff going on. And I'm just the guy with my bottle of water or Gatorade or whatever. And I was totally comfortable in my own skin doing that. And again, it continued to pay off. My freshman year went well. I was starting to draw interest from scouts and having conversations in private workouts and some of that stuff. So I was just sticking to my plan because my plan was working. And in September of 2002, I got a call that I had been, my coach called me in and let me know that I had made the conference all-star team and that I was one of a few guys selected to go play in Wichita in front of all the professional scouts. And it was basically an extension of a pro workout, a pre-draft workout. And once again, hands to the sky, thanking God, this was all working out. Things were coming to fruition, and just as I'd drawn them up the whole time. And so come November, I go to this workout, and I'm there with my coaches and scouts, and it's just what I drew up. And it was going just as planned, having a great day. And this is the day that God would intervene in my life. And I say all this to lead up to this moment because this is really when my life would take a shift. And long story short, that day I was out there working out and went to make one throw and basically exploded everything inside of my arm, from ligaments to nerve, um, to, if you can picture hitting your funny bone like on the table or with a hammer or something, that's the nerve that I tore. And so instantly from my shoulder down, I had no feeling in my arm. And that wouldn't go away the next day, and it wouldn't go away. And as we would do more medical research in the near future, I had completely severed that nerve and done a bunch of ligament damage, for the most part, to the where it was non-repairable. And we could try surgeries, we could try this and that, but really, they didn't see that as a better option than what we were going to try. And so, to sum that part of it up, God took, as this is the way I looked at it, God took my dream away from me that day. I didn't have the maturity to know that God was closing a door and going to open up another one. All I had the ability to see in my young and immature mind was that I had done everything the right way, everything to what I thought was according to his plan. Um, and all in an instant, it was taken away from me. And there were no backup plans. There was no plan B. There was, well, if this doesn't work out, we'll do this. Everything, all the eggs were in one basket. And it was taken from me. And so you can imagine where the resentment starts in first and foremost with God. Because I'm angry now with God. I was 1 minute I'm thankful and grateful, and because things were going my way. Again, I had a very immature relationship with God at this point. Things were going my way. It's really easy to have a good attitude towards anything when you're winning, when success is on your side, but when struggle hits, that's when your true colors are coming out in this sense, my relationship with God. And I had instant anger, instant resentment. And this is where alcohol entered my life. I had avoided alcohol for 21 plus years at this point because it was the right thing to do. And my motivation for keeping me with that mindset, all of my goals, everything that was in front of me was now taken. And I was angry. And I was frustrated and I was having a major pity party. And what better time or place to try alcohol for my first time? I'm old enough, so I'm legally of age. I no longer have anything to lose in my mind. I have got immense physical and emotional pain. Depression has now kicked in. So it's now time to find something to mask that pain with. And I remember going to one of those same house parties or whatever it was that we call them days after, and my arm's in a sling and I can not even move the right side of my body. But I remember the first time I tasted alcohol and the taste was terrible. But when I felt that feeling come through in my veins and I just all of a sudden I felt it come over me and it was there. I felt it exactly what I needed. For the first time ever, I felt a buzz, a high, or whatever you want to call. But most of all, it took away some of my physical pain and I forgot. And that was scary. I knew that was a scary thing for me because I just found a way to forget, which was something I was not able to do on my own. So here starts the beginning of a long and busy drinking career. As it starts, as we most of us tell ourselves, I'm in college. I'm drinking on the weekends. It's just what college kids do, right? So I was just doing the norm, going out on weekends, house parties, going out to the bars, doing whatever. No care in the world anymore because I had nothing to lose. Remind you, my mentality on life completely shifted at this. I was trying to live God's plan. I was trying to carry out all of my dreams that me, my family, everybody worked for. And when that's taken, I just basically said, screw it. I don't care anymore. And anything that can help me not care, bring it over here. And that was alcohol at this time. And so weekends turned into, well, we're not going to go out tonight, but let's just hang out and have a couple drinks at the house. And it just started to become more frequent. But again, I thought it's just normal. I'm a normal college kid for the first time. I was the not normal kid. I was the one that had to explain why I wasn't drinking for so long. And now I'm finding a reason to drink. Uh, so I'm going to fast forward a little bit. A couple years when I came back to Omaha, obviously I like to say gave up, but accepted the fact that the professional baseball thing was no longer, and I had to start finding another path. And this is where, again, I had to start to realize that God was still working in my life, even though I was mad at Him and I was avoiding Him. He was still right by my side and working in my life when I didn't know it. And one of the first ways I came to realize that was I was led into, I was given the opportunity by another college that had previously recruited me to come play there. Um, the guy knew of my situation and his injury and actually asked me to get into coaching, asked me to join his coaching staff while I considered what I wanted to do and finish school. And so this was an opportunity to still stay around the game I loved. Um, wasn't playing, but it was the next best thing because I was involved in the game. I was still going to school and I was able to kind of share um, what I knew and what I had learned with the guys around me. It was a little strange because I'm coaching college baseball and I'm basically the same age as the guys I'm coaching. So it was a very unique dynamic. You can imagine you don't hang out with the kids. I'm the same age and these guys are going out and probably doing their thing on the weekend and you have to separate yourself from that. So that was a very interesting dynamic getting into as a young professional coaching was I had to keep my drinking very separate because of the fact that I'm in a leadership position for the first time. And even though I think everybody kind of knows what everybody's doing, I, for the first time, was trying to go back to acting and pretending like I was the old person that I was with that clean slate and I make all the right choices and you should be making them too because now I'm your leader in terms of a coaching position. So I've got to preach the right decision making, but yet I'm over here in my own little corner, not practicing what I'm preaching. So not off to a very good start with that, but still God's working in my life and he's starting to give me an idea of what's ahead. So I continue to stick with coaching and would continue to for the next 20 years that would eventually become and would turn into what I would do professionally for basically my entire adult life. Um, in 2010, he decided that he had a place for me to come coach in the summer, and it was in Missouri. There's college summer leagues out there where guys go and play in their summer, and I was down in Missouri coaching and spending time with living with host families and doing all this. I'm free. I'm living the single solo life right now. I've got no family. I've got no relationship at this point. So it's me, alcohol, and baseball. And it's working out perfectly because I don't have anybody else to worry about ruining that routine for me. So, um, so I come down here to Missouri to spend a summer, and and this is where God starts to throw another little wrench in my life. I'm out there coaching one day, and I'm in a game, and one of my players comes up to me and says, "Coach," says, "what did you do to your elbow?" And I just kind of like looked down at my elbow, and I was like, "Oh, I don't know." Like it just kind of looked like a scab or an abrasion on it or whatever. Like I had hit it on something and didn't think anything of it and moved on. And then over the next couple of days, like I noticed like it was getting worse. I was actually like feeling a little bit of pain and like stiffness in that elbow, and again, never thinking anything of it, just going on. I'll get this out of the way and just say I was never a doctor guy. I was going to have to be on my deathbed if you were going to get me to a doctor. So I was not going to just get something checked out. Um, but as the summer wound down, I noticed it was actually getting bigger. And then I noticed there was also showed up on my other elbow. And like on a couple spots, I was starting to notice these things and starting to know like spots showing up on my skin and like stiffness and like inflammation and all this stuff. And I wasn't sure what was going on, but again, I was just avoiding it, not thinking anything of it in terms of I'm not going to deal with it. I'll just keep drinking, um, keep avoiding, and keep repeating my vicious cycle. And so when I came back to Nebraska for the normal year, because like I said, this was just a summer experience. I was going down to Missouri for the summer to coach that team and then coming back to the college to coach. And I came home and I kept noticing it was getting worse. And so instead of going to um, the doctor or anything, I just kind of started to go to Doctor Google and whatever it was, and started to do my own research, and it started to get really flaring up, and I was getting like spots all over, and the spots on my elbows were now big and turning into it was spreading. And I was like, was this eczema? Is it what? Well, long story short, I did enough research to and I finally ended up calling and doing a televisit. And I got diagnosed down the road eventually with psoriatic arthritis. And it was in of the genetic form. I had never seen or known anybody in my family that had this. Didn't know what it was, but my form was considered genetic. And so it hits hard, and there's technically no cure for it. And any medication that you could possibly get at this time is thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars. It's a biological medication. Um, any type of cream you can get or anything, it helps temporarily. But as bad as mine was getting, there was not enough cream in the world. And so now I've got pain, I've got embarrassment. The embarrassment was like I was to the point where I was never wearing, I wouldn't wear short sleeves. I wouldn't wear shorts. Um, Forget going to the pool or anything outside. I was wearing long sleeves and pants year round, because I did not want to go out and have people asking me, what you do, what's wrong, what is that, I had experienced that enough. It was like even on my hands, it was even on my hands to the point where like I would be walking around like having my hands in my pockets. The depression, if you could experience something like that, that comes with like the wanting to hide and the wanting to isolate, and no pun intended, but lack of comfortability in your own skin, because it literally was my own skin. um, it was just more reason to hide out and to isolate and to be angry and to drink more to forget. And that I had gone from one type of pain, physical and emotional, from injury, to starting to get some clarity on a path and discovering some happiness again with my coaching career getting sprouted. And then all of a sudden, like, here comes God again, bam, gonna throw this wrench at you. And it just brought me back down emotionally and physically. And what did I know? The best thing to turn to was right back to alcohol, because that's what had helped me with my injury. And that's what was going to continue to help me with this new ailment. I wasn't going to do anything about it. I wasn't going to seek help. I wasn't going to see what opportunities were out there. I was just going to just kind of accept it and drink through it, because that was becoming my best solution at the time, was to drink through it. And so that's what I did. And then fast forward to the summer of 2016, God decided that he was going to send me back down to Missouri, but to a different town of Sedalia, Missouri, where I came, and I'm thinking, oh boy, here we go. What better place to coach baseball in pants and long sleeves than hot, humid Missouri, where it's swampy and 100. But all right, God, there's the opportunity. I'll go. And so I'm back in Missouri. And in June, my friend, the actually it was the daughter of the host family I was living with. She's an adult, and the fiance of one of my best friends I was coaching with, introduced me to a girl named Jacqueline Truitt. And she's from some town called Macon, Missouri. It was about an hour and a half away, but she was going to be at the game tonight. And so she came to our game, and I met her afterwards, and we spent some time and got to talking. And I won't bore you with all those details, but this is the woman that God had brought me to Missouri to meet. This was my why. When I look back, and like, why was I coming down to these strange places, unknown, living in with host families, and you know, chasing this baseball coaching thing all over the place. Like, what are you doing here, God? What's your plan? I'm saying yes. I'm not asking questions. Um, I'm going on your ride, but where are you taking me? And little did I know, he was taking me to her. And she would go on to save my life in more ways than one. But that was when my relationship first started, was June of 2016, knowing that I had a great person in my life, but it was nothing that I was thinking big picture with yet, because I had to remind myself, I'm 4 hours away from her. So this is in about a month and a half, I'm going back to Omaha, Nebraska, and we're going to be 4 hours away from each other. So that distance dynamic is definitely going to come into play. But we didn't focus on that at first, because we had such a good time getting to know each other, and hit it off with our ability to connect in so many different ways, that we just kind of didn't make any early decisions on where we were going to go with it, but we just decided to let it go. And we were just going to roll with it and see where it took us. And I mean, Jacqueline it was very obvious to me right away. Yeah, I see. I have to remind myself and remind you guys, at this point in my life, I'm 33 years old, and I had never been married. I had basically one significant long-term relationship in my adult life that um, never led to marriage. In fact, it only escalated my alcohol situation and environment. So it was best to get out of that. But I had only been worrying about myself this whole time. So it was very easy for me to accept the fact that, it wasn't in my cards to be married and to have a family of my own. And that those years were kind of almost in the rearview mirror to say, um, but again, that's me trying to figure out my plan and not just staying out of the way and letting God show me what His is. And so for a month and a half, Jacqueline basically became my best friend outside of my team environment. I had my players, I had my fellow coaches, and then any spare moment outside of the team, I was spending time talking with her and getting to know her. Um, and loving everything about what I was getting to know with her. What a strong, beautiful woman, a God-fearing woman with just great roots, great foundation, great family, two beautiful sons of her own who were like 12 and 14 at the time. And just she had what I wanted, and I thought, if I could like just plug and play, just insert me into her life, it's like then all of a sudden I see like had Adam had this opportunity for family, there's a glimpse of what it could look like. And so with no specific plans in mind, we just kept rolling with it to see where God was going to take this. And like I said, I ended up back in Omaha. And I should say this too. During those months together, we spent, time when we could together. And we did we did drink together. And I say that because um, she had no idea. I was not upfront or um, honest about my drinking problem at this stage with her. I was hiding it from everybody. Unless you had a reason to find out, I was hiding it from everybody. The only people that knew were my family. And other than that, I was able to hide it and not let it affect anyone else. Well, I went back to Nebraska in August, and in September, we were still continuing our relationship. Everything was going great, and then here came adversity again in my life. In September, I got a DUI. I got a DUI in September, and I remember she was the first person that I called. I had to obviously go down to jail and get out of there and do all that fun stuff. But I remember when I got out, the first person I called was her, and I was scared to death. I was scared of what she was going to think. I was scared that she was going to abandon me. I was scared of that was basically it, that I had written the ending to the story right there with that decision, because it was going to expose my problem. And instead of that, she passed no judgment on me. She obviously, was disappointed for me and knew that I made the wrong choice, but she could see it in me and feel it in me how bad I was hurting. Nobody was hurting more than I was at that time, so she didn't need to come down on me. Instead, she grabbed my hand and she pulled me in the right direction, and I needed that because that was what I thought was going to be ahead towards these rock bottoms that I heard about, and she didn't let me get there. And so we pushed through that. I went through all the legal garbage and got all that stuff taken care of. And I say all this to get to the following summer of 2017. I go back down to coach the same team so I can spend the entire summer with her. All the legal things are out of the way and over with and kind of back on track. But still, my drinking is not changing. That does nothing to me in terms of like, okay, it's over with. I'm going right back to it. I'm just not going to drive. Right. So my drinking continues, only more isolation, more dishonesty, because shame on me, right, for picking up a drink that just got me in trouble, and I had to jump through all these hoops for the last year. And now that that's over, what's my answer? Go right back to it. Great choice, dude. But I did. And so it's back to more hiding and isolating. And I was a professional hider and a professional liar at this point. Um, and so that summer we had a weekend off, and Jacqueline and I decided that we were going to go to St. Louis for the weekend and just have a little weekend getaway and go to a Cardinals game and watch my Kansas City Royals play. And it was great. We had a good little weekend, and we get there, and she's in the hotel, and she is just not feeling very good. And meanwhile, I'm sneaking drinks and doing all that. See, this is the thing where at this point she doesn't realize, like, yeah, she knows I got the DUI and stuff, but mind you, we're doing a long distance relationship here. So I'm still able to do my drinking on my own. So she is still okay with a little bit of social drinking at this point. She just realizes that she hasn't realized that this is a real problem for me yet. Um, and so I'm sitting there basically drinking in the hotel room with her, and she's just kind of sleeping, and she's so tired. And this went on for a few days, and so I'm thinking, is she sick? What's going on? Well, if some of you can't picture where this might be going already, um, this is where God had our next surprise for us in store. And we found out that summer that we were going to have a baby, that Jacqueline was pregnant. And boy, if that wasn't something that, like, just, I mean, I don't even really have words for it. Remember, I said a few minutes ago, I was kind of at the point where I think I'm never going to be a relationship guy, get married, have kids. That ship has sailed. So all of a sudden here, God says, "No, buddy, I've got other plans for you." And one of them is that you're going to be a daddy. And my wife and I had joked and talked for months before this, that if we ever had a baby girl, she said, we don't have to come up with a name. We're gonna name her Adeline, because my name is Adam and her name is Jacqueline. So the first three letters of mine and the last three letters of her make Adeline. And so we joked. We said, well, one thing we'll never have to decide on is a name. And sure enough, we found out right away that we were having a girl. So one of the things we did not have to discuss and stress over was picking a name. So we knew that in March of 2018, our little Adeline Jade was going to be coming into our lives. And so finally, I have this reason to quit drinking in my life. I'm like, boy, okay, I've got this clarity now. Like, I came this far, and nothing was ever able to get me to step away from my drink. And I mean, what else? Like, I'm saying in these silent foxhole prayers, God, I realize this has got to stop. Give me what it takes to step away from the drink. And and all of a sudden now I've got a child to think about. Now it's not just my life. I've got to raise a child in this world, right? Like, what better reason if you won't do it for yourself? You're bringing a child into this world. If not for yourself, do it for her. And so now I'm telling myself I've got this motivation, and here it is, my reason why. And my new life is about to start. And on St. Patrick's Day of 2018, our baby girl Adeline Jade was born, and best day of my life up to that point. By far, I was getting to be a daddy, which was something that like I said several times, I didn't think was. I thought, I had so much shame of the life I was living at this point. I almost thought it was like a punishment, like God wasn't going to allow me to experience that because I wasn't equipped to raise a child like He wanted His children to be raised. And so I had this new lease on life, this new chance, and I had nieces that I loved so much, and I wanted one so badly for myself. And here's this new gift, right? And so it's like all the reason I have here is right in front of me to not drink and to change everything, right? And within weeks, I find myself back at home, up late at night with a child, and I'm still continuing my drinking, and it just continued on. And this is where I'm starting to realize, like, okay, I hate the word. I'm not ever going to be one to use that word, but there's this thing they call alcoholic out there. And I'm starting to realize that I am an alcoholic because I'm not drinking for fun anymore. These are no longer college get-togethers. These are no longer me and my wife planning a get-together once in a random weekend with another couple. This is me having a basically daily routine of getting the house shut down for the night, and so I can start my drinking, and then so I can hide it the next day, because over time the drinking started to become more than a nighttime thing. It was becoming now like I'm needing to drink during the day because the withdrawals are starting to kick in, and all the symptoms you hear about, the I'm only thinking that this happens to, the old homeless guy under the bridge that gets shakes, and is the obsession and all that. And now it's me, and here I am with a newborn and a family of my own, and I still can't find any reason that's good enough for me to put down the drink. It is too powerful, and I am powerless over this thing. And it scared the crap out of me, because for that first time, I was realizing I wanted to quit. I needed to quit, and I couldn't do it. I mean, when you're single and you don't have all the bills stacked up that families acquire, and kids to pay for, like, finances aren't an issue. Your money goes to you and your drinking habit, and you don't have anything else to think about. And so now you would think that all these reasons in front of me are enough. And this is the insanity of the disease. I could sit there and list what, Jacqueline, Adeline, family, trust, job, like all these things that I'm risking, another DUI, all these things that I'm risking. And I still go over here and pick up the drink. And if that isn't insanity, I don't know what is. And at this point, I'm accepting the fact that this is my life. Like, I don't see a way out. I'm too arrogant and scared to ask for help. Um, so I just stick with what's safe to me, which is isolation, hiding, avoidance, and just do it now and deal with it later. I was never worried about dealing with, I knew what the repercussions were going to be, but I didn't let it stop me. I was just going to deal with it when it came later. And this is where my relationship, as you can imagine, really is starting to take a toll, with my wife, because my wife now knows that my number one relationship is with alcohol. And I guess I should back up a few seconds, and say that Jacqueline and I would go on. I immediately had proposed to her, and we went on to get married on Memorial Day weekend of 2019. So she was now my wife. She was no longer just my partner, um, but she was my wife, who I was hiding and isolating from, and denying my problem to, and trying to just act as if everything was okay and I had it under control. And clearly I didn't. Clearly I didn't. But I was too ashamed to ask for help and admit it. I'm this guy that's this big masculine leadership coach, right? I'm supposed to have it all figured out. I preach to these guys, here's how you do it. I can tell somebody else how to stay sober. I can tell somebody else how to keep their nose clean. I can lead somebody else to make all the right decisions, but I can't do it for myself anymore. I lost that ability because of the drink. And so the best thing I can do is hide from that and not have to deal with it. Never wanted to confront anything. And so you can imagine the stress that put on my relationship, and it led to my wife starting to find bottles, and me denying, oh yeah, that's old, right? They're always old. Those have been there for who knows how long, right? But yet I'm hiding bottles in the same spot that she found it. That bottle wasn't there 3 days ago, but here it's there today. But no, baby, that was there for months. I promise I haven't been drinking, just sitting there lying to her face, insulting her intelligence. And so you can imagine like the stress that put on the relationship, the distrust. We became basically coexisting in a home. There was no relationship. I was just, we were there basically to take care of our child and stay together for her. But there was no relationship. My relationship was with alcohol and then my daughter. Um, and I was as good of a functioning alcoholic as you could be, um, until I wasn't. And then it was just a battle to feel good. I mean, we all know that drinking stopped and being enjoyable a long time for me. I was drinking just to feel good and just to be normal at this point. And so the uh, the struggle was on in my marriage, but I was such a good manipulator. I always found a way to keep her just hanging on with a little bit of belief that maybe I could fix this, maybe I would change it, and I just kept the master manipulator in me, always kept her hanging around just long enough for me to go out and do it again. And I had no business having her in my life at this point. I mean, I had given her every reason to leave me, um, due to my drinking problem, the dishonesty with it, the financial challenges that were coming up, because you can imagine not only am I drinking, but then I'm lying and hiding how I'm getting it. Again, insulting her intelligence as if it's just showing up out of nowhere. But yet I'm spending hundreds of dollars a month on alcohol and trying to deny it. And yet for some reason, this woman is still here. And my patterns just don't change. They just don't change. And I'll tell her they are. I'll find a way to get people to believe they are, say the right things. But really, in the background, nothing's changing. Um, and we basically get to the spring of last year, 2025. And my daughter is now just turned 7 years old. And I'm trying to deny and hide from the fact that my daughter is a brilliant young girl at this point, and she knows what's going on. She now knows that she knows what alcohol is. She knows it's bad for you, and she knows that daddy does it too much. And she knows that it's caused a lot of problems for mommy and daddy. And so now I've let this do what I said I would never do, which was affect my daughter, the one person I said it would never affect. And I never changed. And I let it go and continue on for years and get worse and progressively get worse in my hiding in the darkness, to where she knew. She didn't fully understand it, but she knew. And she knew that daddy was getting sick and that daddy wasn't doing anything to stop it. And in May of 2025, several days before my anniversary, um, here comes God again. And I would decide that it was a good day to get another DUI last May. And this is where I would think I'm landing firmly at rock bottom here. The minute I see those lights go on in my rearview mirror and I get pulled over, I'm basically thinking my life is over right then and there. Um, in one way or another, my life is over. It's professionally over. My family life is over. I'm going to drink myself physically now until it's over. But there is no way, shape, or form I am equipped to handle what's ahead of me right now, because I am in for a battle legally or maritally or personally. I'm in for a battle that I don't have another one in me at this point. And so I'm sitting here literally thinking that the end of my life is approaching in one way, shape, or form. I'm not telling people that because I don't want to scare people, but I'd be lying if I said I wasn't having those thoughts. And I remember coming home, walking home from the jail that day, telling my wife what happened, and thinking, she's going to leave, she's going to do whatever. I'm about to be on my own, kicked out of the house, whatever. And I just remember falling asleep, curled up in a fetal position on the couch that day, and basically passed out. And remember waking up and it was dark. I have no idea what time it is, but I wake up to my wife shaking me on the couch. She says, "Adam, wake up." And I wake up and look at her, and she says, "You're going to treatment tomorrow." And I looked at her, and this was something that had come up in questions before, like, "Do you think you need help? Do you?" And I was always, "No, no, 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 no. I've got this. I got this." And for the first time, it wasn't a question; it was a statement. "You're going to treatment tomorrow." And for the first time, I felt like I just took a breath of fresh air. Um, it was like this sense of weight was lifted off of my shoulders. It's not because I was looking forward to it, but because it was like it just had to happen. And I knew that I would never take myself there and that it just somebody else was going to have to push me through those doors. And so, yeah, in May of 2025, I found myself checking into treatment in Kansas City for the first time. And that was the 30 days of not knowing what to expect, but I was going to go in there and I was determined I was going to make a change. I was going to make a change. And this was clearly, if I've got to go into treatment and walk through those doors, I've then made the admission that this disease has the power over me. I'm powerless over it and I need help. And so I was going to attack this with my best efforts, knowing that I'm probably going to lose my marriage because of it. Any trust, anything that I had left is now out the window, and I am all by myself trying to take care of my drinking problem for the first time in my life. And so for the next 30 days, I am basically on a research project on alcohol education, is how I thought of it. Everything I did was going there to learn about alcohol and tying my drinking problem to life. And little did I know that alcohol was not my problem. Adam was the problem this whole time, and that alcohol was my just my solution to Adam. So I got out of treatment in July or very end of June, and went back to my same playgrounds, people, places, and things, thinking that that 30 days had got me sober, and it had got me sober. Alcohol wasn't an option in treatment, so technically I was 30 days sober and coming out, and all things were good to go, right? Just because I got that stamp of approval, that certificate, got those tools, as they say, and that tool bag to walk out with, and I, you know, did everything as I was supposed to. I was ready to go, all things fixed, and I came out back home to that same playground, basically as a what they called a dry drunk. I didn't know what that meant at the time. I'd heard these white knuckling dry drunk things. Didn't know what they meant, but that's exactly who I was at the time. I was not picking up alcohol necessarily at the start, but I was an angry, resentful person. Um, I still wanted to negotiate with myself on what recovery looked like. Um, it needed to be convenient for me and it needed to fit my schedule. If it did all those things, I was all about recovery. I was all about getting better. But I needed a hybrid plan that worked for Adam. Um, And so I started to try and figure out what that was. Meanwhile, right around the corner is August coming, which is basically summer's over and me going back to my daily routine. My playground that I had not acknowledged was one of my main reasons for my drinking. The foundation of my drinking was was based on my continuing drinking. It started obviously where we talked, but my current drinking was really driven by somebody that I was around on a daily basis in my professional life. And I knew that, my wife knew it, but I thought that I was equipped now to go back to that situation and have things be different. And so, fast forward to August, back to work for the first time. And I am now experiencing and again, I'd heard some of these things, but never experienced it. And I didn't realize what was happening at the time. But in late August, I started to experience those first feelings of what would be emotional relapse. And what I mean like that was the drink was not in my hand, but I was recognizing old behaviors coming back, um, old squirrely feelings, um, resentments towards people were coming out. Um, I was starting to isolate my feelings again. All my old behaviors, my addict behaviors, were still very, very present. The alcohol wasn't, but the addict behaviors were. And I didn't know at the time. I wasn't educated enough to realize that this is Adam. This is the me problem starting to show again. Like I said, I had just treated treatment as an alcohol education class, not get to know myself, get to know my thinking problem. It was a drinking problem, and and then so I instead of address it, remember that 1,000-pound phone we all talk about, and all those people and those tools that you're equipped when you leave treatment, and your relapse prevention plan that's there. All those things that I refuse to put into practice. And I refuse to pick up that 1,000-pound phone and call some of these people and tell them about the feelings I was having because I was ashamed of it. I went through treatment. I'm not supposed to be feeling these things again. It's supposed to be fixed. And here I am fighting these same old emotions and feelings that I had been battling for 15, going on 20 years. And it scared the hell out of me. And I didn't know how to handle it. And on September 14th of 2025, I found myself walking away from a day where I had had encounters with that person again. And it drove me to drink. I picked up for the first time in almost 100 days. And I picked up, and it wasn't even a thought about it. I knew what I was risking. I knew what I was going back to. When they ask you, did you know it was a bad decision when you picked up that drink? I have known it was a bad decision basically every time I've ever picked up the drink. There was never one time where I was sitting here saying this is a good idea. And this time is not an exception. I let my playgrounds and my emotions and my unwillingness to practice a program that I had heard so much about. I wasn't willing to do what it took, and I found myself picking up that drink. And for 48 hours, basically, I picked up when they talk about this disease being progressive, I experienced the progressiveness of this disease to its fullest. Um, and what I mean by that is the I went back to drinking like I did in my heaviest. I did not start off like somebody that was picking up a drink. I went back to drinking the same amount I did in my heaviest days, right then and there. It didn't affect me to the point where, well, I need to stop. I just kept going. And then within 24 hours, I was shaking, I was withdrawing, and I was needing to drink just to not feel sick again. It had come back, the withdrawal symptoms and everything had hit that hard, that quickly, that after almost 100 days off, it took 24 hours of drinking, and I was back to withdrawing, shaking, insomnia, couldn't sleep. And now here I am with this wife that is somehow still with me and stuck by my side and stuck with me through treatment and was still there when I came out on the other end of this and working with me. I have to go to her and tell her that I need to go back to treatment because I knew where this was going. I was either going to drink myself to death right then and there, or else I had to go back to treatment because I knew that they were the only ones that could medically keep me safe. And so I found myself on the phone with my wife telling her that I needed to go back to treatment for a second time. And the shame and the sadness and the guilt and the embarrassment and all of those negative emotions that you can possibly come up with all hit at once. But at the same time, I didn't care because I felt so horrible. I knew how bad. All I needed, all I could focus on was get me there and get me medication, get me medicine because I'm gonna die. I felt like I was just literally on the verge of dying, and I was scared to death. I didn't know what to do. And Jacqueline, this woman that has no reason to be here, once again steps up and makes the phone calls and does all the things necessary to get it lined up so that the next day I can be back in treatment. And that night, I ended up having to go to the hospital. They couldn't get me until the next morning, and I was withdrawing so bad and shaking. I had to go to the hospital again. Now, I didn't mention it, but this would be my third hospital visit over the last basically calendar year for this exact reason. The other one was the night before my first trip. Most recent one was the night before my first trip to treatment. I was withdrawing so bad, I didn't feel like I could make it to Kansas City. So I had to go and get taken care of in the hospital the night before. And on the morning of September 18th, 2025, I went back to treatment. And this was my second time. And I did it voluntarily this time, knowing that it had to be done. And this was my only way at getting a chance out. Because if I tried to detox and sober up and do all that on my own, I didn't trust myself where I was at physically. My body was going to give out. And so I was literally wheeled into the treatment center. My legs were so shaky, I couldn't stand up and hold myself up. And I found myself right back in that exact same building I said I was never coming back to, except for alumni to visit. And this right then was when I found truly my rock bottom. I thought I had already been there with the second DUI and going to treatment and all this and that. And then I realized that rock bottom, or what I thought was rock bottom, had a basement below it with a cellar down below it and a well below that. And it just kept going. And I finally found it. And as bad of a feeling as that was, um, as bad of a feeling as it was physically and emotionally, and the scared, the scariness of the unknown, and the fact that I'm probably going to lose everything in my life again. And this is a no doubter this time. I mean, if I didn't lose it the first time, surely I'm going to lose it this time. Accepting all of that. And yet, during all of that, God was still right there. And he brought this like it was in those darkest moments that I had my greatest sense of peace. And this is where I had that moment. It was this miracle moment where I'm 48 hours removed from my last drink, and I've got this long road ahead of me, and I've got nobody in the world that trusts me, and I'm at the bottom of the bottom of the bottom. And yet, like, I knew in this moment that I was going to be okay. And because this obsession, for the first time, was actually lifted. And I didn't think that was a real thing. There's no way this obsession actually gets lifted. um, because I couldn't go 24 hours a day without obsessing over the drink. Um, let alone think about a life like being a like there was a reality where I could actually live a consistent life without alcohol. Um, but for the first time since I had ever picked up a drink, I knew. I didn't just think or hope, like I knew I was done drinking. And that not only was the obsession lifted from a drink, but like a new desire and hunger for life was like put in me. And knowing like, okay, now the work starts. So what do I do now? Now I'm finding myself like, okay, I've got this clarity on what I want, and it's here, and I don't have this obsession. So now the work starts. What do I do next? I find myself asking that famous question, what are we going to do this time differently? And that was the one where I remember sitting myself down on my bed and literally laying it out on paper. And I was not like a paper person, write things out type of person, but I remember sitting down on my bed and literally getting on my knees and writing out, what am I going to do differently? And first thing that came to my mind was that I knew my wife was just, her voice was echoing in my head and sitting here just basically saying, have you ever thought about just turning it over to God? You know, like you would tell somebody else to do. And she was right, because I would tell somebody else to turn it over to God, because I never lost my belief in God or my knowing that God was there. I just lost my personal relationship with Him because I was too ashamed to feel like I had the worthiness to have a relationship from God. I had burned those bridges with God in my mind. So I was never praying for myself anymore. I prayed for other people um, because they were worthy of it. I wasn't worthy of any kind of blessing because I was living a life of destruction and chaos and choices that were wrong. And why would God bless me with anything? But yet my wife's sitting here saying, you know, why don't you practice what you preach for once? And lay it at the feet of God and get out of the way. Get out of your own way. And I could remember hearing her say that and say it. And so I just remember writing down on paper, like in big letters, like, it's yours. I just wrote, it's yours. And that was my way of saying, God, whatever it is, it's yours. I'm done. Everything that I've done my way has got me here. And clearly it's not working. It has led to nothing but disaster, health scares, um, family struggle, um, professional life struggle, you name it. And it's not working anymore. And I'm getting out of the way. And I just want to be nothing but a vessel for you to use. And whatever that looks like, I'm going to trust in it. And for the first time in years, I had a sense of peace, not because I was better, but because of the fact that I knew I was not the one in control anymore. I wanted to be in control of everything. And that need for power was gone. And the desire for somebody else, God in this case, to lead was finally there. And I just was willing to get out of my way for the first time ever. And that's when life really started to get exciting for me. And you know, when I realized like God never left me. That whole time, God was right there next to me the whole time, working and protecting me. And, and I just was looking the other way because I was filled with so much shame and denial that I was even worthy of any of that, that I was just accepting that my life was the way it was and that was never going to change. And yet here he kept showing up and giving me little signs that, hey, I'm still here. You just got to be willing to let me in. That's all it takes, is just let me in, And so once I decided to let him in, and not just let him back in, but give it to him, um, the little miracles started to show up. And my first little miracle was in treatment. My first night when I was feeling good, um, they offer AA every night, and I was still in detox. So you don't have to do anything when you're in detox. But I was just feeling like led to get out of my room, and I'd been there before, so I knew a little bit of what to expect. And so I went to my first AA meeting since I'd been back there, and um, sat down feeling less than my best, but I was where I needed to be, and I knew that. And that was God saying, "Hey, get your ass to that room." And when I walked in, I sat down, still a little shaky, got the tremors. I'm cold, but I'm where I need to be. And I recognize this guy off to my left. Seen him before, and don't know where it was, but I've just seen him before. And he was one of the guys coming in to lead the AA meeting. He was going to chair the AA meeting, and he was from a local chapter. And he'd kind of given me a look, like he had kind of recognized me before too. And so I'm thinking maybe we've seen each other in one of these, whatever. And so at the beginning of the meeting, he's as they do, he's saying, "I'll need some people to volunteer and help, read and this and that." And he just looked at me and he basically voluntold me. He could see the look on my face that I was in a pretty dark place, and I needed to get involved. And so he had me read How It Works, and become of service in that meeting that night for the first time. And I can remember barely getting through it because my voice was trembling. I could barely hold the book still. I was so nervous. People were looking at me, and but you know what? God was putting me to work right there, and I wasn't fighting it. And so I got through my first meeting. I say got through because it was hard, physically and emotionally. God was speaking to me from that first moment. Um, it was, how we all say we go into those meetings and it's like he's singling you out. God was singling me out with everybody's shares in that meeting, and the guy that was there, and he pulled me aside afterwards, and we got to talking, and we didn't know each other, but we just felt like connected in a weird way. And he ended up coming back twice more while I was there, and I would continue to go to these AA meetings, and going back to the things of what are we going to do different this time. One thing as I'm making this list of things I had never done differently, I had not done the first time around, was I had not listened when they told me you need to get a sponsor. And I was just learning of what AA was about. I'd never tried to do AA because of what it was going to offer me. Anytime I had dabbled with AA, it was because somebody had to nudge me there. Um, but I had heard about a sponsor constantly, and I knew that that was something that I was going to need when I left. And so I I dug up the courage to go up and ask. His name was Mark. Ask Mark if he would be my temporary sponsor. And the reason I said temporary sponsor was because I was a few hours away from treatment where I lived. And at that time, I thought it was like a written rule, like you have to have somebody that's like your next door neighbor that can, stand over you and walk in your door at any time to check on you and all of that. So I didn't fully understand what sponsorship was. So him being that far away kind of seemed like maybe it was just maybe a temporary fit. But having said that, I took that step and I put somebody in my life for the first time that was going to keep me accountable. And that was God saying, I've got somebody for you that has way more experience with your disease than you do. He understands this disease. He's got a book. that describes your disease for you perfectly, and it lays out the solution. And he's going to take you through this thing they call the 12 steps. And all these things that I had heard about, but I just, like I said, I was about negotiating. I wanted to find a program that I was going to customize this new program, right? One that fit Adam's needs. And clearly that didn't work. So for the first time, I found myself saying, I'm going to submit to this program of AA. They hear the saying, if you work it, it works if you work it. Well, I had never even come close to working a program. I didn't even know what a program was. I was just attending meetings. I think we all know a difference between attending meetings and participating in meetings and taking ownership of your program and living your program. These were all things that I was trying to understand what that meant. And I was, I was probably 3 weeks into my treatment at this time, and I was doing everything this treatment facility had to offer to work on my recovery, from all the group meetings at day to every AA meeting at night. I was leading in-house AA meetings at night when there was, I was soaking up any ounce of recovery they had to offer, trying to equip myself properly for when I went back out this time, knowing that I was not going to let what happened last time happen again. And then all of a sudden I remember having this day where I was really scared. And this is where God came in again, knowing that that day is rapidly approaching, because I was in my safe space at that point. My recovery was operating at a really high level because it had to. I was in the structured environment of the treatment center where no alcohol available, morning, noon, and night regimented for me. But that reality of that being taken away from me was starting to set in, because I was seeing the light at the end of the tunnel of discharge day going, and I knew what happened last time. And this was a very real reality this time, knowing that I didn't have that obsession anymore. So I wasn't worried about wanting to drink, but I still wasn't sure how to work a program properly. And this is where I say God comes in again. It was October 24th of 2025. I was talking with people about the program and how AA had become of such an extreme importance to me. And it was going to be, after my higher power, that was going to be the foundation of my recovery. But I was from a small town outside of, way outside of Kansas cities or the large areas that have meetings readily available. So my small town has one club that basically meets twice a week, and that's for 1 hour, and that is if that hour is of convenience to your schedule. So this is the challenge God's sitting in front of me, or so I think is going to be a challenge. Now, the old me would have used this as an opportunity to negotiate with myself and say, well, you know what? Hey, we'll just figure out a plan that works for you. That's God's way of saying, you don't have to go to meetings. You don't have to do all this 90 and 90 and all the things you hear about getting involved with the program, because, your environment's not set up for that. So that's me. That's the alcoholic mind in me trying to negotiate with myself instead of the God led mind that is now saying whatever it takes, whatever it takes, whatever it takes. And so I started doing research, and I came across somebody had led me to the Everything AA app, taught me what, all the resources it was going to offer, from all the great literature to the sobriety count to we all know if you've partaken. But one thing I discovered on there that God walked me right into was the online Zoom meetings. And I was like, okay, well, what's this all about? I'd never even done a Zoom meeting of any kind, let alone a Zoom AA meeting. So I did not know what this was all about. But I remember getting home my first day from discharge, and I've still got this wife and daughter that I'm going home to. Somehow, I am not going home wondering where am I going to put my head down at night because I've been kicked out from my house. Um, this woman who trusts God more than her own instincts, my wife, is somehow deciding that she knows that she's supposed to still be here for some reason, and she's trusting God over her instincts. And so now I'm back home for the first time after my second go about with treatment, and it's very real because now I am out here living this life without the safety net of treatment and the structure, and it's time for me to put all my practice into play out here. And my very first day home, I got on Zoom, the Everything AA app, and I went in and I clicked on this room, and I remember it because it was some weird name. It was some weird name, something and beyond. But I clicked on it and I went into this room, and I got in, and all of a sudden these squares show up and I see my face and I'm like, well, okay, here we are. I'm in a room. This is a Zoom AA meeting. And I'm into it a couple minutes, and of course I turned my camera off. I'm muted and I'm just observing. And all of a sudden my camera starts getting glitchy, and and it shuts off, like it kicks me out of the meeting. And like, okay, well, maybe I'm doing something wrong. Well, here comes my alcoholic mind again and my negotiating mind. Well, maybe that's just God's way of showing me that this isn't for me. Negotiate with it. This isn't for me too. So just forget about that, and cross off one more box of, yeah, I tried it, but it didn't work. No. Instead, God said no. Do it again. Just for some reason, He kept me there and trying. And so I say, okay, I'm going to shut up and I'm going to keep listening to you. And I click in this room, and this is the second Zoom room I ever clicked into, and I click into it, and I click in, and it is just chaos. And I open this room, and there's music playing, and there's people shouting, and there's people like making goofy noises, and I can't even really figure out what's going on, to the point that I have to like double check. I click out and I actually exit the room because I think I clicked into something else. I didn't think I clicked into an AA meeting. And so sure enough, I go and I read, and it says zoo crew, like checkup from the neck up, XYZ. And I'm reading, I'm like, okay, this is an AA meeting. So I click back in there. Now I'm more curious than anything. And I click back in there, and sure enough, there's these songs playing, and they're doing this thing called the chip read. And so now I'm kind of curious, and I'm into it, and I'm following along, and everybody's laughing and having a good time, and so I'm like, okay, I'm all about it. I'm here for it. So something, the attention grabber was there. All right. God did a good job of sending me into that room at that exciting, kind of chaotic moment, is what it felt like to me, because it got me to stay. If it would have been just a boring somebody staring at a book at the moment reading, it probably would have been, okay, here we go again. But for some reason, God knew what I needed in that moment. And it was goofiness, and it was somebody showing me that sobriety can be fun. And so then so of course, me still being the private guy I am, camera off, microphone off, I sat around, and little did I know the meeting was actually just finishing up. But then they said, stay with us. We're going into fellowship. And so I sat there and listened to what they were calling fellowship. And I didn't even know what that was at the time. I'm like, am I allowed to stay? Am I supposed to click out of here? Um, and so I sat around, and I listened, and I got to, about the next 45 minutes, I just sat there and listened. And what I got to listen to was life changing. Um, when I I got to listen to the laughter I obviously spoke about. I got to listen to love be exemplified out loud. I got to witness um, what true selflessness is out loud. Um, I was witnessing people living the program, not talking about it. Um, I was witnessing people. I was people like were talking about each other's families and getting together. And this was a family I was walking in on. This was not just some informal or formal AA meeting. Like I was stepping in on a family get together. I was realizing, and people were involved in each other's lives outside the rooms. And then just when they're sitting there, and I'm starting to get like I'm loving it, but I'm almost like uncomfortable with it at first because I'm like, man, like I'm too little, too late for this. These people already have like these awesome relationships established, and I could never really find my way to fit into this. And and then I like all of a sudden I remember sitting there and somebody says, "Is there anybody new to AA out there that would like to come in and introduce themselves?" And I'm thinking, well, that's definitely me, but please, 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 somebody else raise your hand. Um, let's see how this goes. And thank God again by His work, God bailed me out because of my own insecurities right there. But He used somebody else in my situation that came in and talk about the struggle that they were in and explaining their own current rock bottom that they were in and the loss and the hopelessness and helplessness that they were experiencing and all the things that I'm sitting here saying, wow, that sounds eerily familiar. Um, I got to watch that room flip their switch from having a good time and joking around with each other. So I watched them flip us to a switch of love and throwing, recognizing who the most important person in the room is at the time. And it was not them, it was the newcomer, the person that barely had the guts to raise their hand, who has the trembly voice that doesn't want to sit there and talk about the situation that they've put themselves in because of all the horrible choices that they've made. Um, because I never had anybody to blame for where I was in this life. Nobody, I didn't have the traumas that I heard all these other people talk about growing up. Nobody had ever affected me or surrounded me with any of this thing, any of this substance abuse. This was all 100% done by me because of me. Um, so I could never point a finger at anybody for that. So the insecurity to admit all those things that, yeah, I'm here only because of me was something I was never comfortable or willing to admit. I was ashamed of being an alcoholic. And I was ashamed for my family. I was ashamed for my wife. I was ashamed for my daughter to be an alcoholic. I knew I was. I accepted it. Um, but I was ashamed of it. And God put somebody else in that room that day that basically said what I should have been saying and came out and was honest with where they were. And I got to watch this room stick that person at the middle of the herd and surround them and love on them, um, regardless of regardless of if that was somebody that they would normally relate to in real life. They weren't trying to compare. They knew they could relate, and they were sticking. They told that person that they were going to love on them until they would love themselves. And that was right when I realized that God had led me to the exact place I needed to be, because I was accepting, He had lifted the obsession. I didn't want to drink anymore. I knew that I needed to work on this every day. I wanted to work on it, but I was not ready to love myself yet. That was one thing that I could not do. And the people in that room brought me in, and they started to notice me in that room. I wasn't raising my hand, I wasn't sharing, but they paid attention. And they started to notice this same room, this same black square in the room. And finally, somebody reached out and said, Adam, they said, we've been noticing you here. Would you like to come in and introduce yourself? And again, that's God saying, well, I'm not going to let you hide anymore, man. And and so I finally, because of getting to witness what these people had done for other people, was comfortable in putting myself out there. And so I turned my camera on for the first time, and I came into this room and I said, hi, I'm Adam, and I'm an alcoholic. And for the first time, I was not ashamed to say it, but I was actually proud to say it and relieved to say it, because God had put me in a safe place where I knew that I was going to be around people that weren't going to judge me because of that, that were only going to love me harder because of it, and that were going to be here to help me walk through this one day at a time, like the program is meant to be done. And I finally didn't want to do it alone anymore, because I couldn't do it alone. It wasn't working alone. And I learned that this program isn't meant to be done alone. And when I finally allowed God to continue to point me in the direction of that room and let this room take charge of my sobriety with Him instead of me, the miracles and the promises started just continuing to show up every single day. I now had my new addiction. My new addiction was coming into these rooms with people like you guys. And I was getting such an amazing variety of recovery from long time sobriety, of people that know how to work this program daily, that keep coming. The obsession's been gone for years, but they know that they need to keep coming, doing the daily work, because they know that their mind is capable of taking them out any moment. You know, I stay here knowing that this disease is never going to go away. But I also get to come in and hear fresh struggles, fresh recovery, and hear people wrap their arms around them and take people, um, through the steps, and lead them into their own accountability in their program, because this room is such a solution-based room that I've learned. And I'm so thankful to God for bringing me here into this room, because when I stop and think about it, and I've since looked at how many different rooms are out there and how many Zoom opportunities there are, and the fact that I tried another one first and that my connection went out and I got booted from a room, and I decided to try one more and I end up here. And like sitting here saying, no, there are no coincidences. It's the old, is it odd or is it God? I decided that there were no coincidences anymore. And I was just accepting God shot after God shot now, and loving it. And so with that being said, I fell in love with this room. I fell in love with the people in this room, that taught me that I could love myself again, and taught me how to give myself grace, and taught me how to surrender to this program, and taught me how to work the steps, and taught me what service is. I'm in love with service now because of what people, um, what I saw it bring other people in this room, how I saw service light them up and energize their battery. I wanted that. I wanted to catch what they have. And so I kept coming back, and I said, I'm just going to keep doing what they're doing, try and see what they're doing and do that. And so I'm training to be on service team. And I want all that because I see the life that they have. And that's a life that I never was able to experience for myself. And I wanted it. And now I'm getting it. Like, and now it's no longer, I want that. I want that. Now it's like, I get that. I'm experiencing it. And it's because of this room. And it's because of the people in this room that made me want to keep coming back and showing me that there's a home here for me in this recovery. And now I'm getting to pay it forward and live in those steps of, I've been bringing other people to this room with me now. And from my treatment center, I've got other people that come to the zoo room that even found sponsors in this room because of everything that this room offered me and what I came here and found. And I was able to find a full sponsor in this room to take me through the steps, not just that awesome temporary sponsor who I still have in my life, but somebody I see and interact with on a daily basis in this same room. God had waiting for me. I couldn't have found a better sponsor than the one that was here. And it's just amazing that I didn't have to search, but that he brought him to me. And I'm just so grateful. My attitude of gratitude every day is just one that I can't put into words and one that I'm trying to live. Gratitude is an action word, and that's something that I've learned in this room, and I'm trying to exemplify every day because I have so much of it and so much of it that I need to give to others. Because one thing I've learned in this room is that, we can't keep what we've been given unless we give it away. And that's where I'm at right now is I'm no longer am I trying to catch what other people have. I caught it and it's contagious. And I want people to now be able to catch what I have because I was that person for so long that said, that's no longer a reality for me. That's too little too late. And here I am by the grace of God and with the help of people like you guys that are listening to this or that come to these rooms. The surrender to the program in this room has given me a second lease on my life, on my marriage, on fatherhood. Um, I'm now a trusted husband again. Um, I'm the leader of a household again. I'm the financial leader of a household again. I changed all my life. I changed my playgrounds. I now run my own business because I took the chance of sacrifice and willingness to let God take control. And now I got away from my old playgrounds and I've never been more happy running my own business that I'm better off not only financially, but I've got time for my family that I didn't have before. And all the time that I was spending in other areas, now I spend time in this room with my Zoo Crew people, living in recovery and living in the solution and trying to bring other people along with us one day at a time. And I have found my true happiness, the joy and the freedom that life has to offer right here in these rooms. And I have my higher power and God to thank for that. And I will keep coming back to these rooms because I still don't know a lot, but I've learned a lot. I'm learning and I love what I'm learning. And I am not going to, now that God has given me this opportunity and this new lease on life, I realize that sobriety is something that I will never own. I'm an alcoholic and I'm okay with that. I'll be an alcoholic forever and I'm going to die an alcoholic. But I've made the decision that I'm going to die with it, but I'm not going to die because of it. And I'm okay with that. Um, every single day, I will wake up and turn it over to God and do something to give back to my service and those around me because that's what this room has taught me to do. And the service is what keeps me accountable in my own recovery. And so yeah, I'm excited because this is my new start right now. Like the end of this podcast is kind of like the start of my new journey is where I'm at. So I'm so thankful for these 7 months plus that God has brought me and the life that I get to live now, but I'm not taking it for granted. I don't own this new life. I'm just renting my sobriety, and I know that I've got to pay rent every single day. And so I will do that by turning it over to him and continuing to come back to these rooms and surround myself with the program and the people like you because treatment got me sober, but Alcoholics Anonymous, and specifically the Zoo Crew and the people of the Zoo Crew, keep me sober, and they keep me happy and joyous and free in recovery. And I thank God for that every day. And I will continue to thank God for that every day. So, with that being said, I'm Adam and I'm an alcoholic. And thank you for letting me share my story.
Thank you so much, Adam. I just have a quick few questions.
Sure.
Did you, when the first time you went into treatment and then the second time you went into treatment, did you attended more AA meetings the second time, correct? And like the first time you went into treatment, you didn't really participate and get involved in AA. Is that what you said?
Yeah, that's correct. So, I knew they were available and I went to some, but it was kind of like the old, you know, I was drugged to them, and it's kind of like what you should be doing. You look around and you can tell the people that want to be there and the people that went there because it was suggested to them, and so I went a little bit, but it was more of just the suggested, here's what you do with your hour, versus the second time I was looking forward to it. I was going to it with a purpose. I knew that, that was a huge piece of my daily recovery. So it was a non-negotiable for me the second time. It was an absolute mandatory daily thing that I ingrained myself with.
Okay. And have you noticed the change in the relationship, like the trust with you and your wife and your relationship come back a lot, or is there still some hesitance there with your relationship? Because
Yeah,
you have it's still early on in a recovery. You're still
100%.
yeah.
100%. Yeah, and that's something that I could spend a whole other, hour talking about. Because you're right. Because this is definitely early in those. She's going through her own recovery right now, in her way too, and that's also been something that we have changed. When I say I changed a lot, we changed. I encouraged her, and thank God she was willing to get involved with her own Al-Anon recovery. So, with that being said, instead of kind of be a bystander and kind of wonder, and she had all of her own PTSDs and you know things that damage that my drinking problem caused there. And so, just because I was no longer drinking didn't mean that all things were fixed with her in our relationship. That took and takes and is still taking a lot of time. And I knew that, and I accepted that. When I was there coming out, I mean, I was at the point where all I was basically begging for was just a chance to show her one day. Give me one day to show, and then after that, if I can show, earn that, then give me another day of opportunity. I was trying to earn 24 hours at a time right there to show that, I can earn that trust back, and that, not talk about change, because she'd heard me. Everybody's heard us as alcoholics and addicts talk about change forever. So there wasn't anything I could say at this point. It was all about an action program, you know, and so I had to step out and go show, not tell. And so I'm so grateful that she had the patience and willingness to one more time allow me, because I think she says that she, heard and felt something. I don't know what it is. Maybe it was God talking to her, but that there was something a little bit different about this time. So she was gonna. So it kept her here a little bit longer. But having said that, the work truly started when we got out. It was a daily process of earning trust, of showing not just that I quit the old habits, but I had developed new. I can quit a lot of things, but with, surrender and quitting also becomes action. And that was what I had never done before. I had quit drinking my first time after treatment, but I didn't then put into action what was next. And so I have to make a daily intentional um, effort with my wife. And I'm so glad that you asked this question because, now she knows she's not questioning my drink. She knows I don't want to drink. But now our new struggle has become balance in that, like, I became so, my addictive behaviors transitioned right into this program. So now my new addiction was this program, which was great for my sobriety and my routine for that. But I was not having balance in my life to where now she's like, well, great. Now he's sober, but he's still absent just in a different way. So it was still a constant trying to evolve into how does she fit into this now? Because I was always such a people pleaser by nature, including her. But the one true thing that I needed to do to please other people was take care of myself first. And that wasn't what I was doing. So now, by the fact that she has seen me take care of myself, and I'm currently taking care of myself, and I'm living in an action program, the trust has come back, and the happiness has come back, and the relationship. We're no longer coexisting, but we're thriving together again, slowly and surely, because she's a part of my recovery now. I make her a priority in my recovery. I don't just tell her about it and it's this little world over here. Um, she'll be sitting like I lead on Tuesdays and Thursdays. I started a Zoom group that's a fellowship group of purely based of people purely out of my recovery treatment center that I went to, that are old and new into recovery. That's a safe place for people to go, to where it's kind of a bridge to where I introduce them to AA and to the Zoo Crew. That's something that I started, and my wife has since started doing something with those spouses of those people, of my friends that I went to recovery with. So as I'm trying to branch out and um, use my resources to encourage them and help them get into the program like I've been doing, she is now doing with the same thing with some of the spouses of them. So we have come up with a way together to develop a way for us to work a recovery together where we're involved. And that has made our relationship so much stronger in a sense. It's taken time, don't get me wrong. I mean, I was so head over heels with this program and spending time in these rooms that I was almost neglecting her in a way. Not in my heart. I knew in my heart that I was doing this for us, but I wasn't managing it properly yet. This was still new to me. And so I was still trying to figure out balance to that. And I still am, but it's a daily process that is doing nothing but progressing. We're in a very good place right now. Um, she fully trusts me. Um, she trusts the process that I'm on more too. Now that's credit to her for taking the time to learn about my disease more and what it truly takes, um, and the commitment level it takes to this program to do it right and to change everything in your life and to develop new habits. It's not just kind of 1 foot in, 1 foot out, do it when it's convenient thing. I had to go all in and do whatever it took. And so that's what I did. And I'm just so grateful to her for sticking with me through that as well, because there was a time where even in that where I was fully sober, I mean, even in the last few weeks, we had moments where it's like, is it still too late for this relationship? Because she was still trying to find her place in my life right now. And so I've had to work hard on that every single day to make her feel her place in my recovery so that she doesn't feel, because she felt alone for so long. She was worried about me for so long with my health. Um, she tried to she was the one that helped me for so long. I mean, I didn't go into it too long, but my battle with my psoriatic arthritis also, she was the one that ended up helping me to the medical help that I've got. And now I no longer deal with that.
Mhm.
By the grace of God, I no longer deal with that. She led me to the medications and to the doctors. So not only am I physically healthy from the drink, but I'm physically healthy from my other condition that she's helped me process and get through, all things that I was just hiding from and dealing with. So she is a daily part of my recovery. She's my accountability partner. And I could be doing this all alone. I should be doing this all alone when it comes to her because I gave her every reason to leave. And somehow she trusted God more than she trusted her own gut. And God's, told her to stick around, that our best was yet to come. And I promised her and I made a vow to her that if she stuck around to give me that first day, that first chance, that every day I would turn it over to God to live and be a vessel to serve myself, her, and others. And I've done that every day, and she's got to experience it. And so, yeah, we still have our moments of struggle. Life keeps lifing. Life doesn't go away without the drink, but we can handle it and we manage it and we communicate on it, and we live in the solution instead of avoidance. And so yeah, it's a daily process with that. But I don't just like I don't try and recover without the people of my zoo family and my AA family. I don't recover without her. She's a part of my recovery because anybody and everybody that's willing to be part of my recovery, instead of shove them away like I did for years, I invite them in. And I'm a strength in numbers guy. Anybody that wants to partake in recovery with me, they're more than welcome.
Great. That's all. I was going to ask if she decided to do Al-Anon. It's
Yes.
our sister program and everything. So
Yes.
that's a good thing.
I'm so thankful
And
for it.
and that's good. Some relationships don't last through the things, and it sounds like you guys have a good, sturdy foundation of building your relationship back up, and that's awesome.
Yeah, it
Um,
starts with God. I mean, it really does. If we were trying to do this, it really, at the end of the day, um, with our higher power, trusting, that, like, the let go, let God cliche of saying, like, we really truly both had to do that because neither of us had the answers. And I will say this is the last thing I'll say in terms of credit to her with this. Um, she had resentment towards the program at first. Not intentional resentment. She knew that it was the right thing to do. But when she saw how immersed I got in it and how it basically became my new life, there was a little bit of resentment there. And we realized that through talking, there was frustration there. And it was because that this program was able to give to me and get me to a place that she wanted and tried to by herself for so long. And that's not her fault. She wanted this for me so badly for so long, and she tried so hard, and it just didn't work. And then when she saw how quickly God and this program were able to remove that obsession from me and change my life, understandably so, at first, I think there was a little bit of resentment just because of the fact that it was other people in other ways that were able to give that to me versus her efforts. And so it took her a little while of getting with Al-Anon and having patience with that to understand that how this disease works and how the treatment, how solution works, because um, for her, she's now practicing her own program. She's working her own 12 steps. And so it's a partnership in that way. And I'm so thankful that she has stuck with it, because her first couple times she went into Al-Anon, um, all she heard were the horror stories. Basically, people just, you know, um, nothing but, you can count on it. It's going to happen again. Um, Encouraging divorce. I mean, all the reasons. She heard all the things that she could have said to, yeah, just confirming what I was already assuming. But yet she, instead of, try and, compare, she was there to relate, and she was patient, and she waited until, and she shared her story, and she found people that she could relate to, just like I can relate to in my room. She found people that now she can relate to in hers, and now she's working a healthy recovery program. Thanks to Al Anon.
well, Thank you for sharing your story with us today, Adam. I'm sure our members will enjoy listening to it. Have a great day and keep trudging the road of happy destiny. To our subscribers, we hope you enjoyed listening to the story and have subscribed and liked our videos. Please feel free to share our videos along with our website and podcast link.